Hello everyone, I'd like to introduce George Charalambous from Thomas Thomas Surveyors. George is a party wall surveyor. So this interview is aimed at new and aspiring developers who may not know what a party wall is, nor what a party wall surveyor is. Hi George, how are you?
Hi, how you doing? Yeah, very well, thanks.
Okay, so let's start off with some introductions. Would you like to introduce yourself and your company?
So my name is George Charalambous. I'm a director at Thomas Thomas. We're chartered building surveyors based in London Bridge. We carry out a range of kind of surveying activities, but one particular area of expertise of ours is party wall surveying, and that's what we're going to discuss today.
Good stuff. Okay, so let's start off with the basics. What is a party wall?
A party wall is a wall that divides either two properties or pieces of land that are in separate ownership. So the dividing wall between two semi-detached houses, or a brick garden wall dividing, for example, two gardens or pieces of land would be a good description.
Okay, great. So why does it matter, and why would a new developer need to know about a party wall and a party wall surveyor?
Because that wall, the party wall and other activities that are defined under the Act are covered by a piece of legislation known as the Party Wall Act, and there is a legal obligation to carry out certain activities when you're carrying out works, be it working directly to a party wall or carrying out certain works in proximity to it, like excavations. So it's a legal requirement that obligation is followed.
Okay, perfect. So if we imagine that I'm a developer, residential developer, maybe I'm building a house extension or a new build in the garden, or maybe I'm converting an office. So can you explain to me, when would I start talking to you, and at what part do you join the process? And then actually what happens in the sequence of notices and events, and just map it out for us.
Absolutely. That's a very good question, because often we're introduced to the process, in our opinion, too late. We would always suggest that, whilst the design is being developed, so for example, whilst you're speaking to your architect and you're understanding what it is you're proposing to do, we would suggest engaging somebody like us, because there are things you can and can't do to party walls. There are certain rights that are afforded to you under the Act, like a right of access to your neighbour's property. So in terms of understanding the implications of those, we would suggest that the earlier the better, because that can maybe then inform your design and maybe kind of allow you to take advantage of some of those rights, or to decide to alter your design if there's a particular impact to a neighbouring property. So we'd always say the earlier the better. Once the design's kind of been agreed and we understand what the notifiable works, which are the works covered under the Party Wall Act, are, we would then act with the developer to serve notices on the adjoining owners, so the neighbouring properties, and that can be the freehold owner of the property, or if there are leases with an interest of over a year, those people also count as owners under the Act. They need a notice as well.
Okay, so you get in touch with them to make them aware that the neighbour is about to start some works.
We do, and those notices have set time periods that people have to respond within, and they can essentially consent to that notice or dissent. Dissent is a bit of a misleading term, because they can't stop the work happening. The dissent just means that they want to, there's a dispute that needs to be resolved, and that can either then be resolved by us as one party wall surveyor acting for both parties, or in some instances the neighbour will, or the adjoining owner will, elect to appoint their own surveyor, and then the two surveyors will essentially work well, sometimes not work together, but work in tandem to agree a document that's known as an award, which settles the dispute and kind of sets the parameters for the work being carried out.
Okay, so best case and worst case, how quickly could this process take? So if the neighbour says, yeah, no problem, carry on, or they may say, hell no, then
well, if your neighbour consents to a notice, in theory, you can start the work by agreement. You can start the work the very next day. You know, it's then the case that there isn't a dispute anymore. That's been resolved. That's been settled. We would always suggest that consent is in writing, so that a quick change of mind doesn't sort of jeopardise things. And even if a neighbour consents, we would always suggest that you get a schedule of condition done of that property, so that you cover yourself in case of any future claims for damage. So that's one end of the spectrum. That can take a matter of days. On the other end, if, for example, a neighbour doesn't respond to your notice, then you have to wait a period of 24 days before you can appoint somebody on their behalf, which you're obligated to do. And then following that, there'll be a time period to agree an award. So you could be looking at 2 months, 3 months sometimes, depending on the availability of information. I mean, you do get sometimes particularly sticky ones that take longer. If there's basement excavations, for example, are notoriously problematic, and then you have engineers involved, and
okay,
so that
a few months.
Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. So it sounds like this is a very complex and detailed topic, so we'll leave it there for today. But thank you very much for the overview. So just to wrap up then, so if anyone wanted to get hold of you, how would they get in touch? And also you mentioned that your company does other pieces of work and surveys and activities. So if you want to give a quick overview of that too.
So yeah, as a business, we engage in measured surveys and design, specification, and contract administration and project management of works. So those are our kind of core services. And if you wanted to contact us, my email is george@ttsurveyors.com, and our office number is 0207 060 1899.
Lovely. Thank you, George.
No worries. Cheers. Lovely to speak to you. Thanks.